My name is Nora Bennett, and I was 18 years old the night my stepfather burned my university acceptance letter in our backyard fire pit. Not tore it, not crumpled it, not tossed it in the trash during an argument. He held it over the flame with 2 fingers, smiling like he was doing me a favor, while the word accepted curled black at the edges and disappeared into smoke. My mother stood behind the kitchen window and watched. She did not stop him. My little half-brother, Caleb, stood on the porch steps, laughing nervously, because he thought maybe it was a joke, and because children in houses like ours learn to laugh before they know whether something is safe. And my stepfather, Martin Hale, looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Girls like you don't run off to fancy universities. You stay where you're useful." I remember the smell of the paper burning. I remember the orange light on his face. I remember the wind pushing ash across the yard like my future had become something light enough to disappear, and I remember my own hands shaking so badly. I pressed them flat against my sides because some wild part of me wanted to reach into the fire and pull the letter back out. What Martin did not know was that the paper was not the real acceptance. The real acceptance was already in my email. The real scholarship was already confirmed in the university portal. The real record was saved in 3 different places, because my English teacher had taught me never to trust one copy of anything important, and the real Father Martin had spent 14 years calling useless, absent, selfish, and dead to us was very much alive. He was not poor, he was not powerless, he was not the ghost Martin had invented to scare me away from asking questions. He was an attorney, a patient one, a precise one, and when he found out what Martin had done, he did not come to our house screaming. He did something much worse. He requested bank records. He hired a forensic accountant. He filed emergency motions. He froze Martin's business accounts. He exposed 14 years of stolen child support, drained education funds, forged reimbursement claims, intercepted mail, and lies so old they had become the walls of our house. By the time I moved into my dorm room at Westbridge University, my stepfather was selling his truck, his boat, his repair equipment, and the house he used to call proof that he had built this family from nothing. But the lawsuit was not where the story began. The lawsuit was only the part where the truth learned to speak in court documents. The story really began with a blue envelope. It arrived on a Wednesday afternoon in April, 3 days after my final senior year exam. I found it wedged between a grocery flyer and a water bill, bent slightly at one corner, with my name printed in dark navy letters across the front. Nora Bennett, the return address was Westbridge University. For a moment, I just stood there at the mailbox, holding it. Westbridge was the kind of university people from my town talked about like it belonged in another country. Old stone buildings, research libraries, professors whose names appeared in documentaries, tuition numbers that looked fake until you realized they were very real. I had only applied because my English teacher, Mrs. Alvarez, refused to let me delete the application. For 3 months, she had stayed after school with me, reading essays, correcting grammar, making me rewrite the same paragraph 6 times because, as she said, "You keep apologizing inside your own sentences." I told her Westbridge students had parents who owned lake houses. She told me Westbridge students also needed classmates who knew how to survive. I told her the application fee was too expensive. She found a waiver. I told her there was no point. She looked at me over her glasses and said, "Nora, let them be the ones to say no." So I applied, quietly, carefully, without telling Martin. That was how I did most things that mattered. Quietly enough not to be stopped before I knew whether hope was allowed. For weeks, I checked the portal every morning before brushing my teeth. I checked during lunch. I checked in the bathroom at work. I checked at midnight with my phone under the blanket, even though I already knew decisions would not post at midnight. Then, 2 days before the paper letter came, the result appeared accepted. Full tuition merit scholarship, housing grant, first-year research fellowship. I stared at the screen until my laptop went dim. Then I touched the word with one finger like it might disappear if I looked away too quickly. Accepted. Not waitlisted, not rejected, accepted. I cried into my sleeve so nobody downstairs would hear me, not because I was sad, because for the first time in my life, a door had opened that Martin Hale did not control. The paper letter came 2 days later. I took it to the public library because our printer at home had not worked in years, and Martin always said ink was too expensive for school nonsense. I printed the official letter, the scholarship breakdown, the housing grant, the financial aid estimate. Then I put everything in a yellow folder and carried it home against my chest like it was a living thing. I wanted to show my mother first. That was my mistake. You would think a mother would scream when her daughter received a full scholarship to one of the best universities in the country. You would think she would hug her, take pictures, call relatives, say, "I knew you could do it," maybe cry, maybe laugh. Maybe say the name of the father nobody in our house was allowed to mention and admit, just once, that he might have been proud. My mother did none of those things. She sat at the kitchen table, opened the folder, and read the first page. Then the second, then the scholarship page. Her face did something I had seen before but never understood. Fear, not pride, not joy. Fear, Nora, she said quietly. You should have talked to us before applying somewhere so far away. I laughed because I thought she was overwhelmed. Mom, it's Westbridge. They're paying for almost everything. Almost everything is not everything. I can work. They have student jobs. Mrs. Alvarez said I can apply for the summer bridge program too. I don't care what Mrs. Alvarez said. That stopped me. My mother rarely snapped. She had spent most of my life being soft in the way tired people are soft voice, soft steps, soft apologies after hard things happened. Then Martin came home. Martin Hale was not my father. He entered my life when I was 4 and married my mother when I was 6. He owned a small equipment repair shop on the edge of town and talked about it like it was an empire. He had thick hands, a heavy walk, and a voice that made every room feel smaller. In public, everyone called him generous. At church, he fixed lawn mowers for elderly men and refused payment loudly enough for everyone to hear. At school events, he introduced himself as Nora's dad before I could correct him. At home, he kept a notebook of what everything cost: shows, lunch money, dental visits, gas for school events, electricity, food. He called it accountability. I called it a bill for existing. When Martin saw the folder on the table, he did not pick it up right away. He looked at my mother first. What's this? She got into Westbridge, my mother said. Her voice was already small. Martin's eyes moved to me, then the folder, then back to me. For 1 second, I saw surprise, then irritation, then calculation. Westbridge, he said. That's 7 hours away. Yes. And who gave you permission to apply? I looked at my mother. She looked at the counter. I don't need permission to apply to college. The kitchen went silent. Caleb stopped chewing cereal at the island. He was 10 and had learned early that when Martin's voice changed, children disappeared even when they were still in the room. Martin picked up the letter. He read it slowly. His mouth tightened with every line. Full tuition, he said. I nodded. Housing grant. Yes, not full housing, most of it. Most is not all. I know. I have a plan. He laughed once, a dry, ugly sound. You have a plan. I held my breath. That was what I did around Martin. I waited to learn which part of me he had decided to punish. He tapped the paper against the table. What about your family? What about them? Your mother needs help here. I can visit. Caleb needs someone after school. He has parents. My mother whispered, Nora, not to Martin, to me, a warning, a request, a plea not to make things worse. Martin folded the letter once, then again. I stepped forward. Don't. He looked pleased that I cared. That was always when Martin became most dangerous. When he found the thing you loved. He walked through the back door. I followed. The fire pit sat near the fence, full of scrap wood from the shop. The evening sky was pink and gold, a normal beautiful spring evening, the kind that should have belonged to happiness. Martin took a lighter from his pocket. Martin, please, my mother said from the porch, still not stopping him. Only asking gently, as if asking gently had ever saved me, he lit the corner. For 1 second, the flame was small, then it caught. The university seal blackened, the word accepted curled inward. The paper opened like a dying leaf. He dropped it into the fire pit, then he turned to me. Girls like you don't run off to fancy universities, he said. You stay where you're useful. I did not cry, not then. Something colder than crying moved through me. A quietness so complete it scared me. That night, I packed my backpack with my laptop, my birth certificate, my social security card, the scholarship printouts. Mrs. Alvarez had already helped me save Ev, and $73 in diner tips. Then I waited until the house went silent. At 1:14 in the morning, I climbed out my bedroom window and walked 3 miles to Mrs. Alvarez's house. I had never been to a teacher's home before. I knew it was crossing a line, but Martin had crossed something first. Mrs. Alvarez opened the door in a robe, holding a baseball bat. When she saw me, her face changed. "Nora," I tried to speak. Nothing came out. She lowered the bat. Then she saw the backpack, the shaking, the way I kept looking over my shoulder, and she stepped aside. "Come in." Some adults ask too many questions when a child arrives in crisis. Mrs. Alvarez did not. She made tea, put a blanket around my shoulders, set my backpack by the wall. Then she sat across from me at her kitchen table and waited. When I finally told her what happened, she did not say he meant well. She did not say parents get scared. She did not say family is complicated. She opened her laptop and said, "Show me the portal." I logged in. The acceptance was still there. The scholarship was still there. My name was still there. That was the first time I breathed fully since the fire. Mrs. Alvarez printed everything again. 2 copies, then 3. She scanned them, unloaded them to a cloud folder, and mailed one set to herself, one to the guidance counselor, one to Westbridge admissions. Then she looked at me over the top of her glasses. "Nora, has Martin ever interfered with your mail before?" I hesitated. That hesitation answered more than words. Sometimes bank letters arrived opened. Sometimes school notices disappeared. My SAT fee waiver form had vanished once, and Martin said I lost it. A summer writing program email had somehow ended up in the trash folder. A state scholarship packet never arrived, though the school swore it had been mailed. At the time, I thought I was careless. That night, I began to wonder how many dreams I had blamed myself for misplacing. Mrs. Alvarez asked one more question. "Do you know where your biological father is?" I stiffened. Nobody asked about him, not directly, in our house. My biological father was not a person. He was a warning. His name was Daniel Reyes. According to my mother, he left before I could remember him. According to Martin, he was a deadbeat who signed away responsibility and never sent a dime. According to family stories, he was selfish, ambitious, and uninterested in raising a daughter. I had stopped asking about him around age 9 because every question made my mother cry and Martin angry. "I don't know him," I said. Mrs. Alvarez studied me carefully. "Do you want to?" The question felt dangerous, like opening a window in a house full of gas. "I don't know." She nodded. "You don't have to decide tonight." But that night, after she made up the guest room and gave me clean towels, I lay awake with my phone under the blanket and typed his name into the search bar. Daniel Reyes. There were many, too many. Then I added my mother's maiden name. Daniel Reyes Marissa Bennett Dayton. The first result was an old legal notice. The second was a business profile. The third was a photograph. I knew his face immediately, not because I remembered him, because I saw my own eyes. Daniel Reyes was not dead. He was not poor. He was not hidden in failure somewhere. He was a civil litigation attorney in Columbus with a small firm specializing in family fraud, custody interference, and financial abuse. The irony was so sharp I almost laughed. My supposedly useless biological father had built a career suing men who controlled families with money. At 7:12 the next morning, I filled out the contact form on his office website. I did not write much. "My name is Nora Bennett. My mother is Marissa Bennett Hale. I think you may be my father. My stepfather burned my university acceptance letter last night. I need to know if anything I was told about you is true." I expected no response. I expected proof that Martin had been right. Men leave. Girls like me stay useful. At 7:19, my phone rang unknown number. I almost dropped it when I answered. A man's voice said, "Nora, just my name, one word." And somehow I knew. Yes. He inhaled sharply. "This is Daniel Reyes." I did not speak. "I have waited 14 years for a way to reach you without putting you in the middle of another fight." My throat closed. "What?" His voice shook. "I did not leave you." Those 5 words changed the direction of my life. Daniel did not ask me to trust him immediately. That mattered. He asked where I was. I told him I was safe with a teacher. He asked if Martin had hurt me physically. I said, "Not the way you mean." There was a pause. Then he said, "Emotional coercion is still harm." No one had ever said that to me before, not in those words. We agreed to meet at Mrs. Alvarez's house with her present. When Daniel arrived 2 hours later, he stood on the porch in a gray suit, holding a folder so thick it looked like a book. He did not rush toward me. He did not hug me without permission. He simply looked at my face and started crying, quietly, without shame. "I'm sorry," he said. Not excuses, not explanations, just the beginning of the truth. Inside Mrs. Alvarez's dining room, Daniel placed the folder on the table. Inside was my childhood in paper, court orders, returned letters, copies of checks, certified mail receipts. Birthday cards sent back unopened, petitions denied. Visitation requests, CMOMs from my mother saying contact would confuse me. A custody agreement that granted him supervised visitation twice a month, until my mother claimed I became distressed afterward. A later modification suspending visits temporarily. Temporary had become 14 years. Then came the financial records. Child support, every month. Paid through the state system first. Then direct transfers into an account my mother controlled after Martin claimed the state payments were delayed. College savings contributions. Birthday deposits. A 529 education account started when I was 3. Statements mailed to our home address. Statements I had never seen. My hands trembled as I turned the pages. Daniel watched me like a man watching surgery he could not stop. I kept paying, he said. Even when they told me you wanted nothing to do with me. They told me you never sent anything. His jaw tightened. That is going to matter. Mrs. Alvarez leaned forward. What do you mean? Daniel opened another folder. Martin and Marissa may have committed custodial interference, conversion of education funds, fraud, and possibly mail interference if account notices addressed to Nora were intercepted. My mother's name hit me harder than Martin's. Marissa, not Mom. On paper, she became a person who had signed things, allowed things, taken things. I wanted to defend her. I wanted to say she was scared, tired, trapped. But every page on that table had my name on it, every check, every statement. Every returned card. By noon, Daniel had called Westbridge University. Not as an angry father demanding special treatment, as an attorney helping a scholarship student whose acceptance had been intentionally destroyed by a household member. Within an hour, admissions confirmed my place was secure. By 3, financial aid had reissued the award package digitally. By 5, Daniel had filed an emergency motion requesting preservation of all bank records, education account records, mail forwarding records, and communications related to my university funds. By the next morning, Martin's repair shop received a legal hold notice. That was when he realized the paper he burned was not the only paper in the world. He called me 37 times. I did not answer. My mother called 12 times. I answered once. She was crying. Nora, where are you? Safe. Come home. No. Martin is furious. I know. You should not have contacted Daniel. That sentence told me everything. Not how did you find him? Not what did he say? Not is it true? You should not have contacted Daniel, because she knew. I closed my eyes. Mom? Did Dad pay child support? Silence? Nora, it's complicated. Did he? He made things difficult. That wasn't my question. She cried harder. Martin took care of us. Did Daniel send money for me? Nora. Did he? A whisper. Yes. The words split me open. I sat on Mrs. Alvarez's guest bed with the phone against my ear and felt 14 years rearrange themselves. Every secondhand coat, every school trip I could not attend, every time Martin said food cost money, every time my mother told me not to ask for more, all while money with my name on it had entered that house. What happened to it? I asked. She did not answer. So I hung up. The lawsuit began quietly. That is what people do not understand. Legal revenge is not thunder at first. It is envelopes, deadlines, subpoenas, preservation notices, bank records, emergency motions filed before people finish breakfast. Daniel did not storm into our house. He did not threaten Martin in the driveway. He did not give him the satisfaction of a scene. He built a case. He hired a forensic accountant named Paula Kim, a woman with calm eyes and the terrifying ability to read bank statements like a confession. Within days, Paula found the pattern. Daniel's child support payments came in. Cash withdrawals followed. Transfers to Martin's repair shop, payments on his truck, payments on his boat, credit card bills from hunting trips, a home theater system, a down payment on a piece of land Martin had secretly bought under his business name. Then came the college account. That hurt most. Daniel had funded a 529 education account for me for years, thousands of dollars. Money meant for books, tuition, housing, application costs, test fees, transportation, anything that would help me build a life. Martin and my mother had drained part of it by claiming qualified educational expenses. But I had never attended private school, never received paid tutoring, never received a laptop from that money, never even knew the account existed. The reimbursements went into an account Martin controlled. Paula traced several payments to equipment purchases for the repair shop. One invoice read, hydraulic lift installation. My college money had helped Martin lift trucks. When Daniel showed me the report, I laughed. I could not help it. It came out broken and sharp. He looked worried. "I'm sorry." "No," I said. "It's just perfect." A man who said I should stay useful had literally used my education fund to make me useful to his business. Daniel's first lawsuit was civil. Misappropriation of education funds, conversion, fraudulent concealment, unjust enrichment, intentional interference with educational opportunity. The second filing targeted Martin's shop assets. The third requested repayment of diverted support funds. Martin hired a lawyer from a billboard. That is not an insult. It is a fact. His lawyer's website had a bald eagle, a gavel, and the phrase, "We fight for real families." At the first hearing, Martin wore his church suit and tried to look like a hard-working father persecuted by an angry outsider. He made one mistake. He called Daniel a stranger. Daniel stood slowly. He did not raise his voice. "Your Honor, I am Nora Bennett's biological father. I paid court-ordered support for 14 years, contributed to her education fund, sought lawful contact repeatedly, and was blocked by the household that now claims I am a stranger." The judge looked at the file, then at Martin, then at my mother. For the first time, I saw Martin's confidence falter, not collapse, falter. That was enough. The judge issued a temporary order preventing Martin from moving business assets, selling equipment, draining disputed accounts, or accessing funds tied to my education account. Martin's face went red. His lawyer whispered urgently. Daniel sat beside me, still as stone. I wanted to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt sick, because my mother sat on the other side of the courtroom crying silently into a tissue. And even after everything, part of me wanted to comfort her. That is what emotional training does. It teaches you to run toward the person who let the fire happen. Outside the courtroom, Martin tried to approach me. Daniel stepped between us, not aggressively, just completely. Martin glared at him. "You think money makes you her father," Daniel answered quietly. "No, showing up does." Martin turned to me. "You little liar." Before I could react, Daniel said, "Every word you say to her from this moment forward may be included in the record." Martin stopped. That was the first time I understood the power of having someone beside you who knew the rules. Martin had always won at home because he made the rules. In court, he was just a man with bad records. Discovery destroyed him slowly. There were bank statements, accounts, account withdrawals, old tax filings, low on applications where he had listed my child support as household income, receipts from the repair shop, invoices, transfers, records that did not care how loudly he explained himself. Martin had always depended on confusion. He liked stories with fog. He liked saying things were complicated. He liked making people too tired to ask one more question. But Paula Kim loved questions. She asked where every dollar came from, where it went, who touched it, who signed, who benefited, and every answer walked back to Martin. Then came the video. I did not know it existed. Caleb had recorded part of the fire pit scene on his tablet because he thought Martin was doing something funny. Kids do that. They record chaos because nobody has taught them yet that some moments become evidence. The clip was 19 seconds long. It showed Martin holding the letter. It showed the flame catching. It showed me stepping forward. It showed my mother on the porch. It showed Martin saying, "Girls like you don't run off to fancy universities. You stay where you're useful." In court, the clip lasted 19 seconds. It felt like 19 years. Martin stared at the screen. My mother closed her eyes. The judge's mouth tightened. Daniel did not look away. Neither did I. For so long, Martin's cruelty had lived in tone, atmosphere, implication, the kind of harm people deny because it leaves no bruise. Now it had subtitles. The settlement conference happened in July. By then, Martin's business credit line had been frozen. 2 commercial clients had left after hearing about the lawsuit. His supplier had suspended deliveries. His truck payment was late. He blamed me for that. People like Martin always blame the wound for becoming visible, never the hand that made it. The conference room was small and cold. Martin sat across from me with my mother beside him. He looked older, not poor yet, but worried in a way I had never seen. His lawyer opened with a speech about family healing. Daniel opened a folder. Family healing ended. Paula's report showed $186,000 in child support and education-related funds diverted or misused over the years. Another $74,000 from the college account improperly reimbursed or transferred. Legal fees growing. Potential punitive damages. Possible referral for criminal investigation. Martin's lawyer went pale before Martin did. My mother whispered, "We can't pay that." Daniel looked at her. You already spent it. She flinched. I did too. Truth can be fair and still hurt to hear. Martin leaned forward. You want to ruin us? For the first time that day I spoke. No, I wanted to go to university. He stared at me. You think you're better than us? No, I said. I think I was never your property. The room went quiet. Daniel looked at me then, not proudly in a loud way, proud like something long buried had finally reached sunlight. The settlement terms were brutal because the records were brutal. Martin had to repay the education account, repay diverted support, sell the boat, liquidate the hidden land parcel, play a lien against the repair shop, agree to wage garnishment if payments stopped, pay a portion of legal fees, issue a written admission that he intentionally destroyed my acceptance letter and misused funds intended for my education. He refused at first. Then Daniel's lawyer slid over the draft referral packet for the prosecutor. Martin signed. His hand shook. I watched the pen move across paper and thought of the fire pit. The way he had smiled while my acceptance burned. The way he believed paper only mattered when he controlled it. Now paper was taking his life apart line by line. By August, the boat was gone. Then the truck. Then the hidden land parcel. The repair shop survived, but barely. Martin had to take on a partner to keep it open, which meant he no longer ruled over it like a kingdom. The house went up for sale that fall. Not because Daniel demanded it, because Martin had borrowed against it to keep pretending he was richer than he was. My mother moved into a small rental with Caleb. I visited Caleb once before leaving for Westbridge. We met at a park. He was quiet, too quiet for 10. I didn't know, he said. I know. Dad says you hate us. I don't hate you. Do you hate him? I watched a squirrel run along the fence. I don't know what to call it yet. Caleb nodded like that made sense. Maybe it did. Children living under controlling men learn complicated emotions early. Before we left, he hugged me hard. I'm sorry I laughed, he whispered. My throat tightened. You were a kid watching a grown-up act like it was funny. He cried then. I held him. That was the only moment in the whole story where I hated Martin completely. Not for what he did to me, for making a little boy feel responsible for an adult's cruelty. The day I left for Westbridge, Daniel drove me. 7 hours, 2 suitcases. 1 backpack, a box of books from Mrs. Alvarez. A new laptop Daniel insisted was not a gift but delayed delivery of what was already yours. I let him win that argument. We did not talk the whole way. We were still learning each other. Father and daughter is a simple phrase for a very complicated reconstruction. Sometimes we talked about music, sometimes about law, sometimes about my childhood, carefully, like walking through a house with weak floors. He told me he had kept every returned birthday card. I told him I remembered seeing one once in the trash when I was 8, unopened, with a Columbus return address. He had to pull over after that. We sat on the shoulder with the hazard lights blinking, while he cried into both hands. I looked out at the highway and realized grief is not only about what happened, it is about what should have happened and did not. When we reached campus, Westbridge looked impossible. Stone buildings, green lawns, students carrying boxes, potcrents taking pictures, banners welcoming the incoming class. For a moment, I felt like an intruder. A girl from a house where acceptance letters burned did not belong under towers like that. Then Daniel opened the trunk, placed my suitcase on the sidewalk, and said, "You belong anywhere your work carried you." I almost cried. Instead, I nodded. He walked me to check-in, waited while I got my key, carried the heavy box upstairs because fathers, I was learning, like to be useful when allowed. My dorm room was small, plain beautiful, a bed, a desk, a window facing a maple tree. A room nobody in Martin's house could enter without my permission. Daniel set the box down, then handed me an envelope. Inside was a photocopy of the settlement agreement's first page. I frowned. Why would I want this? Not to remember pain, he said. To remember proof. I looked at him. One day, when you are tired or lonely or someone makes you feel small again, you may wonder if you overreacted. You didn't. I folded the page carefully, put it in my desk drawer. Then I hugged him for the first time. Not long, not cinematic, but real. His shoulders shook once, mine did too. After he left, I sat on the dorm bed and listened to students laughing in the hallway. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. "I hope you are safe. I love you. I am sorry." I stared at it for a long time, then I replied, "I'm safe. I love you too. I'm not ready for more." That was the truth. And for the first time in my life, the truth felt allowed. University did not magically heal me. That would make a better story than life usually gives. I struggled. I overworked. I panicked when professors gave vague instructions. I apologized too much. I hoarded dining hall fruit in my bag for the first month because some part of me did not trust food to remain available. I checked my scholarship portal constantly, afraid someone would take it back. But slowly, life became larger. I joined a research group, made friends who did not ask what I cost, met other students with complicated families, and learned that shame shrinks when spoken in rooms where people do not flinch. Daniel visited every other month. Sometimes we were awkward, sometimes wonderful, sometimes both in the same conversation. He came to parents' weekend and looked so nervous that I laughed at him. "You argue in court for a living," I said. "Judges are easier than daughters," he replied. He met Mrs. Alvarez at an honors reception and thanked her so sincerely she had to wipe her eyes with a napkin. She told him, "Don't waste this second chance," he said. "I won't," and he hasn't. Martin faded from my daily life, but the consequences kept moving. When he missed the second restitution payment, Daniel enforced the lien. When he tried transferring equipment to a cousin, Paula found it. When he claimed hardship, the court reviewed his spending and denied relief. By the end of my first year, Martin had sold almost everything that made him feel powerful: the boat, the truck, the extra land, the house. A collection of antique tools he used to brag about. He still had the repair shop, but not control the way he once had. He still had anger, I'm sure. Men like Martin do not lose anger. They only lose places where anger works. My mother eventually testified in a supplemental hearing. She admitted she knew Daniel had sent money. She admitted Martin controlled the accounts. She admitted she had been afraid to contradict him. Daniel did not attack her on the stand. He simply asked, "Did Nora know her father was trying to reach her?" My mother cried. "No." "Did you allow her to believe he had abandoned her?" "Yes." "Was that true?" "No." That testimony hurt worse than anything Martin said, because Martin had always been a locked door. My mother had been the window I kept hoping would open. Afterward, she wrote me a long letter. No excuses, not perfect, but honest. She said fear made her selfish. She said comfort became more important than my truth. She said she let Martin rewrite Daniel because it made her own choices easier to live with. I did not forgive her immediately. I still have not fully. But I kept the letter. Not every bridge must be crossed right away. Some are simply worth not burning. 2 years later, I stood on a stage at Westbridge to receive a student research award for a project on educational access and coercive family control. Mrs. Alvarez was in the audience. Daniel was beside her. My mother watched on live stream. Caleb texted me afterward. "You looked like you owned the whole place." I smiled for 10 minutes after reading that. Martin never contacted me directly again. Once, through my mother, he said he hoped I was happy now that I had won. I did not respond, because he still did not understand. I did not win when he became poor. I won when I left. The lawsuit mattered. The money mattered. The accountability mattered. But those were not the real victory. The real victory was the dorm room door. The first lecture. The first time I raised my hand without hearing his voice in my head. The first time I bought a winter coat with money from my campus job and did not feel guilty for needing warmth. The first time someone asked about my father and I said, "Which one?" without shame. The first time I understood that being useful is not the same as being loved. If you are listening to this and someone has burned something you loved, maybe not a letter, maybe an opportunity, a relationship, a dream, or a version of yourself you were trying to protect, I want you to remember something. Fire is dramatic. That is why people like Martin use it. They want you to believe destruction is final because it looks final. But paper can be reprinted. Daemons can be recovered. Records can be subpoenaed. Money can be traced. Truth can survive in places controlling people forget to check. And fathers who were called absent can sometimes arrive with folders full of proof. My stepdad burned my university acceptance because he thought my future was a piece of paper he could turn into ash. He thought fear would keep me home. He thought my mother's silence would protect him. He thought the man he had erased from my life would stay erased. He was wrong. My biological father did not save me like a hero in a movie. He helped me save myself with evidence, law, patience, and every document Martin thought nobody would ever read. By the time I walked onto Westbridge's campus, Martin had lost the life he built with money meant for mine. And I had gained something bigger than admission. I had gained my name back. Not Bennett Hale, not the useful girl, not the ungrateful daughter, not the burden. Nora Bennett, scholarship student, survivor. Daughter the girl whose acceptance letter burned once, and whose future did not.